So one of my kids' favorite meals is my ham and bean soup. And I learned this recipe from my ex-mother-in-law, Carol. She used to make it after when she would do her holiday hams with the leftovers. Now I am already through my canning season. Last year I canned a whole bunch of food and beans and stuff, and I have used all my beans up already. So normally I use my canned beans. I usually use black beans, navy beans, and northern beans. Now, of course, with this pandemic that's been going on, there's been a shortage of beans, so I was not able to find any navy beans. So I'm going to supplement it today with, substitute it rather, with pink beans. Beans are beans, pretty much. So in here I have some ham bouillon broth made up. I always use these better than bouillon brand bouillons. This is the ham base. They make it in chicken, they make it in beef, ham, and vegetable. And I do have a sweet onion. I'm going to probably cut half of that, chop it up. I use tomato sauce, a ham steak I'll cut up, take the outside off though. I don't want the skin. And then I use liquid smoke. My mom always told me to use liquid smoke. She used it. It's one of my go-to items whenever I'm making my hand soup or my pork barbecue. And then my trusty old pot. I've had this pot since probably 1985 or 86. So I'm going to go ahead, chop up my onion, chop up my ham steak. I'm going to rinse all my beans off and get my soup going. So anytime I'm cooking, I use a sweet onion. And what I did is I cut up half of this onion, chopped it all up. I put a little oil in my pot. I'm going to turn it on a medium high, and I'm going to go ahead and fry up my onions until they're clear and soft. And be careful not to burn them. Now what you definitely want to do with canned beans is you definitely want to rinse them off. Otherwise, if you don't and you add them to the ham soup, it's going to make your ham soup very cloudy and white, filmy kind of looking. Not too appetizing. So make sure you drain all your beans and then rinse them really good before you add them to the pot. So I'm going to go ahead. These are my northern beans. I'm going to rinse my black beans, and I'm going to rinse the pink beans that I'm subbing for navy beans. Okay, again, now I'm going to rinse my black beans. Just make sure that you rinse them really, really good. Now the black beans, the broth that they're in the can is actually blackish red, real dark black red, and it will make your soup look like dirty water. So it's really important to go ahead and rinse the beans really good. Now I always use canned beans as a quick way of cheating. You can make this soup with dry beans by soaking them overnight. To me, that's a lot of work. So I just use canned beans. Now while I'm rinsing my beans, I do have my onions in here cooking a little bit. I'm going to add a very little bit of salt and pepper. Not too much salt because the ham broth is really going to be salty. And over here, I'm actually, I could not find navy beans, so I'm using pink beans today instead. So one of the things I normally do, if I have time, I would normally get a ham hock that's smoked. I would put it in a pot of water, and I would boil it down for quite a while to get a really good smoky flavor. And then I would proceed with like keeping the ham broth, and then I take the ham hock, I cut some of the meat off, and I process it in my little miniature food processor to make it into tiny little pieces that I would add to the soup at the end of it. But today I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and use that ham bouillon. It gives you the same amount of flavor as if you were cooking a ham hock down to get a good broth. And if you're making a ham in the oven, like maybe you're making a holiday ham, and you put water in the pan and you're baking your ham, you'll get a really nice ham broth off of that. You could also save that. But I would either boil down a ham hock or cheat and use the better than bouillon ham base. Let's see, I have it ready. So once my onions are done cooking, what I'll do is add my ham broth. And then I have all of my beans in here. I'll dump all them in there. And then I'll add 1 can of tomato sauce to give it a red color to my broth. And then I don't measure my liquid smoke. I just squirt it in there until I get the amount of liquid smoke flavoring that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off my onions and then go to the next step. So I went ahead and added my ham broth. Now you can see I have a lot of room left in the pot and not really a lot of broth. I'm going to hold off on adding any more liquid because I have a huge amount of beans here I want to add. So I'm going to go ahead and add the beans and the tomato sauce, and I'll see where I am as far as my height in my pot. Alright, so I added all of my beans. So I did 2 cans of black beans, I did 2 cans of pink beans, and then I did, I guess what would equate to 2 cans of northern beans. And as you can see, I have room left in my pot. I barely have any broth. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more water to fill the pot up a little bit more. I do need more broth area there. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and add a can of tomato sauce. About almost a can. All right, maybe 3/4. We'll see how it looks. Maybe a little bit more. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some liquid smoke. Now I may need to turn around, depending on how it tastes. I may add more ham bouillon just to give it more of a deep ham flavoring. So I just squirt the liquid smoke in there, and then I'll go ahead and mix it. Now what I'll do is I'll turn the heat up to between medium and high and get this to come up to a boil, and then I'll turn it down to more of a low heat, between low and medium, and I'll let it cook so all the beans get heated thoroughly. And I will add parsley as well. And so while this is coming up to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut up my ham steak and I'm going to add that. Now when I started, I actually had my Pampered Chef measuring bowl. I had about 8 cups of water in there, and I had 3 teaspoons of this ham bouillon. I think it was about maybe 2.5 teaspoons of the bouillon. And then I added it to the pot. Now I just did a little bit of a taste test with a teaspoon, and it doesn't have enough ham flavoring that I wanted, so I did add another teaspoon of ham bouillon. So overall, I did use a total of 3 teaspoons of the ham-based bouillon, and I added about another 2 cups of water. So I did about 10 cups of water in here, 3 teaspoons of the ham bouillon. So what I did is went ahead and I cut up my ham. Now, I usually buy a ham steak, or you use leftover ham if you had a ham for like a holiday meal. Now, don't forget, when you open your package of your ham steak, there will be some ham juice in there. So I normally let that dump into my pot for a little bit more flavoring. Funny story, when our puppy, our dog Stacy, was alive, whenever I would make this dish, she knew what I was doing when she saw that ham steak. And I used to literally cut the ends off, and she would be standing right over here waiting. And what I would do is to give her the end pieces, and she'd eat them right up. So they never went to waste. Now, unfortunately, I have to throw them away because she's up in doggy heaven. So what I'll do is once my soup comes to a boil, I'll turn it down and let it simmer. And then I'm going to add the ham. Now the ham slice is already pre-cooked, so I don't want to add it right away and have it cook for like 20-30 minutes. That's overkill. I'll lose that ham flavor that's in the meat. So I will wait until like maybe the last 5 minutes and throw it in there just to heat it up. So I went ahead and added my ham. Now my family likes the ham cut up really small. I've made it with leftover ham from like Easter, and I had bigger chunks of ham, and My youngest son does not like it like that. He likes it cubed. He is very particular. And then the liquid smoke. Now what I do normally is I'll use a teaspoon and I'll test how it tastes. I mean, it doesn't look too appetizing right now, but I will test my broth to see how much ham flavoring it has. And if it needs more, I'll add more liquid smoke. But right now I think it's spot on. Let me get my other spoon. And as you can see here, there's a nice amount of beans in there. I have a nice little bit of a broth with it. Kind of hard with the steam coming off the pot. But all I got to do then at this point is just let it simmer, heat up till all my beans are heated. And then I have a perfect dinner ready for the family. And I can tell you that this pot of soup will be gone by 2 days. My youngest will just eat bowl after bowl after bowl. And so will Steve. And if the older boys were home, this pot would have been gone probably in one dinner serving. And that's it. I do have the recipe written down for my kids in my recipe box. But I wanted to do a quick video of making it as well.